I am now live. So they say. You never really know. I mean... Hello, Janine. Hello, other people. I thought I would just do another live thing. Now, I'm sorry about the layout. I'm actually sitting here, but I'm trying to do this in landscape position so that when I upload this to YouTube, people asked if I could do it in landscape, because I guess for phones it's sort of okay, but for YouTube I can see how it would be easier if it would be landscape. So I'm just trying this. I don't know if it's going to work out. Let me know. Alright, I thought that today what I would do is I'd just show off a couple of interesting pens that are coming up. Review-wise, we can discuss other things too, but shall we just get started and see what we have? This pen was sent to me by Marte Modena in Italy. New Chronicle. It's pretty looking pen, I would say. I mean, it looks very nice. Number 6 nib, steel nib, but cool, clear feed. Don't know how you can see that, but that is a pretty nice touch. Converter, it's sort of like a captive converter system to the extent that you can just unscrew this bit and operate the converter, which is kind of a nice touch. Now, I know that you don't really like just hearing about pens, but you also like seeing them. So let's put these out of the way. Let's put them slightly so you can at least have something visual going on. So let's see. I have to figure out a little bit where the field of view ends. Can we all see this? Because if not, then I just need to do something. But looks good so far. Okay, nice thing about this Marte Modena pen is that is a smooth nib. It's steel, but it's very smooth. I will give them that. It's a broad nib, and I'm not entirely sure who makes it. It has the Marte Modena logo on it, but I don't really know who makes it. I'm pretty sure I put diamine ancient copper in this, which I thought would go well with this pen. For some reason, it reminds me a bit of Tatcha, the Tatcha type materials. It's like a horn or something, you know, like antlers, which this is, I'm pretty sure, is not actually, but you know. Still, nice writer. I will say I had some issues inking this up. There was some issues with the converter drawing up ink, but we'll see how we'll get there. What is the name of that blue-green pen? Yeah, I bet you want to see that. This is a limited edition Visconti, which was sent to me by Giardino Italiano. Giardino Italiano. It's an Italian pen company, and they were in existence for quite a while, 1996, 2016, and they had this made. It's I would say based on the Rembrandt model, because it looks very much like this, but it has a very special theme, Giardino dell'eden, because this is the Garden of Eden. And what's particularly cute about this is that it has the Tree of Life with all the apples on it, but somewhere hidden, I have no idea how well the camera will pick this up, but is a serpent. It's hidden. Yeah? Hidden. Okay. Now, nice thing is, this was sent to me by review. This is for review. So obviously reviews coming up as soon as I can. Limited edition. This is number 80 of 100. There are 100 of these teal pens.
Try and put stuff here, because the chat covers this.
Oh, okay.
Just to make it easier.
Yes. Thank you, lovely assistant. This is there's a teal pen and there's a black pen, and this is obviously the teal. Comes with a stub, which is a simple number 5 steel Visconti stub, and in a way I've had better results with Visconti steel than with Palladium, and that is a nice juicy line, I must say. So I'm having some fun with this. The ink here is watermelon, what used to be South Sea blue. They're turquoise. That's a pretty nice nib. I was just doing a reverse writing, see if that would work out. So here we have some real calligraphic potential, I would say. Very nice, and so far I'm pretty impressed by that. And of course, it has all the features the Rembrandt has, magnetic closure and all that, which is kind of neat. It doesn't work when you post it, which I've always regretted, but it is nice, and it does sort of ensure a fixed lineup of the cap and barrel. So that's not bad at all. I saw that Janine asked for the ink. I just said it, but I didn't mean that in a mean way. But just in case you missed it, it's the Waterman. They're turquoise. I always forget what they.
Now it's called
what they call.
Obsession.
Obsession blue. Shall we write that?
But also South Sea blue and Inspired blue, depending on what.
Obsession. I was going to write SS, but I guess I shouldn't. South Sea blue, aka Inspired blue. With Waterman inks, one never really knows, huh? Because yeah, they change names more than once. What else have we got here? We got this interesting pen, a Pilot Custom Heritage 912. Oh, is that really fancy? Not necessarily, but the nib is fascinating. No, it was not dropped. It's a PO nib. Could be an unfortunate abbreviation in some English-speaking nations, but the PO nib is interesting because it is very fine as you write with it, or it's kind of broader when you turn it over. Now, for the record, it's running dry, but you can sort of see how this works. So it's pretty much a reverse Fude. Ali says I'm a legend. Thank you, Ali. I didn't say so myself, but thank you thank you for pointing it out. So a PO nib. If you like fine nibs, which I don't, but some people do, then this is a pretty interesting nib. Reverse Fude upside down, so bent downwards instead of upwards as Fude nibs are, and I think there's a little bit less curvature to this, but that's pretty interesting. So there is that, which I do find interesting, and which is slightly related, as Marco just said, thank you Marco, to a Concord nib, which is, I suppose, Sailor's version of this. As you can see, it's kind of similar. Seems to be bent a little bit farther. Always makes me really nervous to look at this, because I always have the feeling that someone has dropped this. But here you have a similar thing. So you have a fine nib in its normal orientation, and a much broader nib in the upside down orientation, which is it's kind of cool. So review of this, the Pilot Custom, will be coming up, and so will this. Oh yes, Eric, it is the Eric's Past Pen Show. That is entirely correct. So there is that. Now, something else I'm actually pretty enthusiastic about, sorry about the noise as I turn over the paper, is this pen. This pen was sent to me by Pen Chalet. This is a brand that I was unfamiliar with. The brand is 3952. What's that? That is the height of Mount Jade in Taiwan. I was unfamiliar with the mountain. A lot of pen manufacturers like mountains. There's Montblanc with the 4810. There is Platinum with the 3776 from Mount Fuji, and now there is this, which I have I'd never heard of this before, but I think this pen has quite a lot going for it. First of all, this is a pretty nice finish. It's a little hard to capture in the light. Of course, in the video review, I'll try to do that a little better. But you have sort of these grooves that run along. It's almost, I would almost say, rifled, right? It has that twist going on, which is very interesting. That's nice. Big center band, which has the laser engraved 3952 on it. It's a pretty heavy pen, a lot of metal parts, which is very interesting. And indeed, Ralph, it is a magnetic cap, which in a way is always cool. Let's see if the demonstration works out, but boom! So that's very neat. Posting, again, it doesn't really work. But here, and this ink is, I'm pretty sure it's Waterman Purple. I was really...
Visconti purple.
Oh, Visconti Purple, correct, thank you. I was really quite impressed by this pen. It's an extra fine nib. There is some feedback, but it's not scratchy. It's, I won't say a massive pen, but it's definitely not a small pen, and it feels very solid because it's so much metal on it. A clip that is super tight and barely usable, that's one of the downsides. But I can see how this would make for a very good business gift, for example, corporate gifting, because it's a solid, it's pretty masculine with all the black and chrome, but it's affordable. I want to say it's something like $150, and don't quote me on that from the top of my head, but it's on sale at Pen Chalet. So a pretty exciting brand, something I'd never heard of before, something that's pretty affordable, especially for what you get. And I know you can also buy Twisby and it would be piston filler, but this is just something different, a different type of pen. As I said, very masculine, and the magnetic closure, it's pretty solid, and it works well. So quite exciting, I would say. And I do agree that Visconti Purple is quite nice. And as you can see, for a extra fine nib in particular, it's not at all a bad writer. So I kind of like that. I know we've already discussed this, but that really is a nice juicy nib on this Visconti. So this is a review that will be coming up pretty soon. I do find it interesting, especially because I have reviewed a Rembrandt long time ago. It will be interesting to see this now. Yes, I know this is to be pulled out, the heavy artillery, so that's coming up next. The only thing I wanted to say about this, because I just forgot, is this is actually one of those Viscontis that has enamel on the clip still, and it's well done, so that's very interesting. I do really like it, and indeed it works, so that's pretty interesting. All right then. Here is my my regular, no, we call that my recent purchase. Regular doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I had to fill a bit around for a pen pouch, but I found one courtesy of the nice people at Lay Wines in Toronto. They helped me pick one. Whoops, I just hit the tripod, sorry. I have to reach around some stuff here, so forgive me if it's not super smooth all of there. Here we have something interesting, a Danitrio Mikado Aka Temenuri finish. This is a pretty sweet pen. Eric was selling this. It's the Eric's Pen Show, as we said, and this is a pretty nice one. The Mikado. Interestingly enough, I have already reviewed this quite a while ago. Around Christmas last year, Eric visited us in the Netherlands still, and I borrowed this to do a review. So I already kind of knew I liked it, and now he was selling it, and I couldn't resist. Now this is a big pen, all right. So let me see. I think that Rembrandt is actually a pretty good size reference. The Mikado is it's pretty substantial, not necessarily just in length, but in girth. And I know that someone is going to ask, so let me just reach over here and grab the Emperor. One pen for my messages in a bottle on a desert island. Well, the Emperor would be a good choice. And as you can see, the Emperor is definitely a bit longer than the Danitrio, but Danitrio is definitely a girthy pen. I also think it has absolutely stunning lacquer work. It's maybe a little hard to see in this light, but still. So, what do we have? We have a large stub nib, number 8 sized. There's number 6, so you can see it is a big nib. It's one of the prettiest nibs I've ever seen, I must say, because the pattern on it is really, really nice. 18 karat solid gold, and this happens to be a stub nib. So it is a nice bit of line variation. I like this section with the calligraphy on it, which is quite attractive, but the nib itself, that's a really, really beautiful pattern. Okay, now I know you want to see how it writes. It's the same system as the Emperor, so it has a one-way shut-off valve, which means that you have to open the end a bit. I open it quite far, actually, because I like it as wet as I can get it. Sounds wrong, but anyway. Bit of writing, stub, natural line variation, that's very nice. It's also quite crisp, so you definitely get some good line variation out of it. As I see it now, it is a little bit on the dry side, but I still very much like it, and making a nib wetter is fortunately not that difficult. Some really, really nice natural line variation. This is without any pressure. Just because of the shape of the nib, and especially if you go a little bit slow with this and maybe just push down on that a little bit, you really get a very, very nice amount of line variation out of that. So it's a very, very interesting nib, and one that I definitely found very pleasant to use. It's also a pretty crisp italic, so you really maximize the line variation. And that I think is very very nice. Someone said this. No, it's not a number 6 nib. This is number 8. So it's pretty big. So do a bit more writing with that as we are here. Anyway, very nice, juicy writing if you exert a little bit of pressure, which also suggests to me that if this nib would get tuned up a little bit to make it a bit wetter, it is going to perform very well. As you can see, this is just with very, very light pressure, then it puts down a very nice juicy line. A big ebonite feed too, which I definitely enjoy, and that's yeah, that's just it's just very fun to use. It is a bigger pen, and it's definitely a fatter section, so I can see how for some people this might not be the most convenient pen to use, given how wide the section is. And in that regard, for some reason, the Emperor has a slightly more traditional looking section. The advantage of that being that it has that taper, and I think for many people that is very comfortable. It's also a wetter pen just as it is, because I haven't even opened that valve, and that's a very wet writer. So that is definitely fun, and it's also kind of fun that the Emperor now has his Empress, because I think that's I have to look at this. What I find particularly interesting about this pen as well is the that one-way shutoff valve. You barely even see a line. You see, it's only when you open it that you see that crack, but once you close it, it pretty much disappears, and it looks like it's a solid piece. So it's very, very interesting. Does the Mikado fit the Visconti 6-pen case or not? No, it doesn't. I actually had some trouble. I'm just rummaging around here looking for my case. There we go. I had some trouble finding something that it fits. This is the 12-pen case, but it's a similar amount of space. As you can see, it sort of fits, but that's literally pushing it, because I have to push it in to make that fit, and it's a bit uncomfortable to me. I'd rather not push it that far. Whereas even the Speakeasy, which is definitely not a small pen in its own regard, but it's just a little thinner, that's great. So it needed its own pouch, and hence this one, which was from the Shinola company in Detroit. As I said earlier, I picked that up at Lay Wines in Toronto, and that is almost like it was made for the pen, because this is definitely an excellent fit. So I was very happy to be able to find that somewhere. Now, as we have this out anyway, Speakeasy, of course, is a pen that has been reviewed quite a while ago and requires little introduction as to its weird obscenely huge proportions. It's I always think of this as an obscene pen. It's just weird. It's so big and strangely, it's long. It's peculiar, and yet I really kind of like it. So I enjoy that. If you like bigger pens, then of course that's always fun. Did you empty it, Ralph? No, I don't think you actually emptied it, but I do think we are... yeah, we're getting there, huh? Yeah. It's also kind of disappointing when you have such a big pen and such a tiny converter. But anyway... yeah, that hexagonal shape, that is something they did very well in the cap, because this pen is definitely very prone to rolling. But once you cap it, because of the facets, it's perfectly stable, which is definitely very interesting and very well thought out, I think. I just wish this was a power filler. I know you have the same bezel, which is this in gold trim, the power filler, but that's also, I think, 3 times as expensive as this is. Okay, then, what we have, I'm just reaching in something here. What we have is Ralph visited us, and of course we have this, which is kind of interesting. Sorry about the light, I'll try to block it there. This is very fascinating, has not yet been opened. Oto makes these, Japanese company of which I've reviewed quite a bunch of stuff. Sorry about the noise, this is ASMR, right? Okay, good. So we have this, and this is, speaking of tiny things, this is a tiny thing. You have this little cute card, which you put in your wallet or something, and then in there you have this tiny thing, which I found fairly hilarious, and it's magnificent. It's the Minimal. And look how tiny that is. See if that writes straight away. It's tiny for sure. For example, if you take an Emperor and then you take a Minimal, then you see that one is bigger than the other. And in fact, if you take the Emperor cap and you take a Minimal, then you can pretty much carry it around in the cap. So, but of course, that's the whole point of the thing, not to make something that's really big, but to make something that is tiny and cute and small. And that's also very useful, because if you have to have a ballpoint, then you may as well have something like this, which is very portable. And I do enjoy that, actually. So thank you, Ralph. I appreciate it. This is useful. I like this kind of stuff because it's very functional. So there's that. There's also, and I shall refrain from unpacking this now, but there's also a mechanical pencil. Same thing, but instead of a ballpoint being mechanical pencil. So if you guys love that sort of stuff, that's always available. I'm just reading the comments, but I have to tilt my head. Oh yeah, sorry, Gourmet Pens. Yeah, I always take your stuff. I doubt I would use that for more than the occasional emergency note. Well, I do hope you don't write a whole lot of emergency notes, but yeah, it's kind of convenient if you have to quickly do something, and I do admire the simplicity of the whole thing. Even the little button there, I mean, that works well. Do I enjoy Swiss Army knives? Yes, I do. I had a couple, and when we were moving to Canada, I gave quite a bunch away. But I have always enjoyed them. I kind of preferred the Victorinox brand, but I do like them. It can be very useful and very interesting articles to have lying around. Do I plan to stay in Canada for a long time? Well, I definitely plan to stay in Canada for the time being. So we'll see how all things work out. But that is the plan. So I will be here for a while for sure. Let me just take a sip here. All right. Now, as I just happen to have this lying around, I don't know what's in here. None of these things I've never seen before. But have I ever used fountain pen talk as a chat up line? No, I don't think so. I do know that I have received some online marriage proposals on YouTube videos, so there is always that. Do I like any type of films in particular? Yeah, I have a weird taste when it comes to movies. Right now, I'm watching the original 26 Zatoichi movies, which that's a lot of movies. Japanese movies, blind swordsman. Very, very fascinating. I thought I should just show you this. Here we have I find this fascinating from a sort of, let's call that a pen philosophical viewpoint. All right. So, sorry about the light. That's it's the window behind me. This is, I think I've shown you these in my last live video, but I'm trying to make a point here. This is which is nice because usually I don't, you see, and I keep interrupting myself, so I may never get there. But in any case, this time I'll finish the sentence, I promise. This is the Omas Paragon, all right? The original Omas Paragon, which has a very specific size, as you can see here, okay? This is what they call the Omas Paragon Grande, or the modern Paragon, because this is the original Paragon and this is the new Paragon. Now what I find fascinating about that is the size difference. The modern Milord is about the size of this, all right, the original Paragon. But what is fascinating is that it seems like people, and I am one of those people, it seems that people are getting increasingly interested in larger pens. Let's wipe this section here. Because the difference is quite remarkable, not just in length, but also in girth. So you see the new Paragon is a lot bigger. Both, of course, are the beautiful Arco finish. And then you have this, which is not a Paragon at all, so it's not related. But this is that new Armando Simoni Club. I'm just going to block it with its own cap here, so I have my hand free. Armando Simoni Club Bologna Extra. But what I find really fascinating is that you can see how in the span of a few years, because all of this is within living memory, right, that the demand for bigger pens has really increased. People want bigger pens. I don't know if this is particularly interesting to anyone, but I ponder these sort of things when I'm all alone, crying myself to sleep. There is the Paragon, the old, new, and then this. So you can really see how pen size increases. And if you look at the average vintage pen, yes, I know there's the big Waterman and all that, I know all that, but if you look at the average vintage pen and then you look at modern pens, that's quite a difference. And I do find that very interesting, that clearly that has changed. And for me, I mean, the Milord is actually, I'm saying Milord because of this size, we had a Milord, that was a pretty comfortable pen to use. But for me personally, the Paragon Grande is actually more comfortable. So I would prefer, if I had the choice, I would prefer the new Paragon. That is a very nice triple broad nib, by the way. And this is just a fine nib, but a very nice fine nib at that. So very interesting. So yeah, interesting. So you say big pens are more comfortable for me. Yeah, me too. Okay, so someone asks here, so which of the three pens do you prefer? Well, interesting question. Of the three, simply because of the size, I like this one least. This is also Aziza's pen, so that's a good thing, because that's her pen. You see, she's also taking this back immediately, like, oh no, don't touch me stuff again, you bastard. We don't actually say that. I really like the Paragon. I really like the Paragon because beautiful fine nib. This is Waterman Havana Brown. A nice wet writer, and yet a nice fine nib that's smooth over the fox. Forget about lazy today. So I really enjoy this pen, and it's a piston filler, which is also great. It definitely holds a nice amount of ink. Were I to pick between the two, at this point I may actually pick the Armando Simoni. To be honest, I find both of them different pens. Different enough to say I want to keep both. Simply because this is a classic design, and the 12-sided pen body This is a round pen, different filling systems, has a pneumatic filler and a number 8 nib. What's fun about this is the line variation it offers. And one thing I will say about the regular Paragon, or I should say that Paragon Grande, just to make the difference, is that it's not a particularly springy nib. You can get some line variation out of it, but it's not one of the super springy 18 karat gold nibs. So in that regard, I do think this is a very fun pen to use. But were you to say, if you were to recommend me one, maybe for everyday writing, the Paragon, because this is a very big pen and it's very heavy, and I'm pretty sure that not everyone would appreciate that. So only buy this if you really want a massive pen, and it's heavy too. It's a heavy piece. This is, I don't know if it's more balanced, because I actually don't find the balance on this particularly bad, but I think for longer writing sessions for many people this will be the more comfortable pen. Can we see the ASC next to the Emperor? Of course you can. And you might be surprised. I'm going to throw in another big pen. And here's the LB5, because we're having fun and we're just playing around. As you can see, the ASC actually kind of holds its own against the Emperor. Emperor is a big pen, but am I reviewing soon the Deco Band? I'm trying to get one, because the Deco Band is made by the same person who makes the Armando Simoni pens, and same filling system, same nib. This is rose gold plated, but same Magic Flex nib. So I agree that it will be very interesting to both review it, but also do a shootout between that and this pen. So yeah. Is the ASC heavier than the Opera Master? Well, I don't have a scale at hand right now, but I'm going to, with my amazing experience in fountain pens, I'm just going to hold both and see. If I have to guess now, I'd say they're both pretty heavy, but I think the ASC may be a little bit heavier. The Opera Master is a very nice pen, though, especially because of the filling system. Power filler is very nice, and I do like that you can actually see the nib through the cap. That's kind of cool. Okay. I had the ASC in my hands. Hello, Tara. I had the ASC in my hands, and it was just too big for comfortable writing for smaller female hands. Yes, I know, and I can really see how that would be big. And I mean and I think you held the Deco Band too, if I remember your picture from that pen shop visit. You can see I'm clearly stalking you, just to elucidate something here. Tara and I know each other well, but I think you held the Deco Band as well, and that, in my recollection, is even a bit fatter, but I could be wrong there. I think that's a really girthy pen. But I can definitely see how this is not for everyone. That's what I meant earlier. If you maybe have smaller hands, or you don't really like heavy pens, then this is absolutely not for you, because it is a pretty monstrous pen, to be honest. I mean, again, here is something that I would consider a pretty normal size, that Rembrandt, and if you put those two together, you do see that ASC, that's no joke. I mean, it's a pretty serious pen. At least the section is the same material. Yes, I completely agree. That is, in a way, I find that a shame, because in the old Paragons, that was the case. You see this is smeared with ink.
Oh, yeah, I threw it around before I handed it to you.
You threw it around before you handed it to me. Well, thank you so much. No, I'm just kidding. The old... Sorry, I'm cleaning pens here. It's boring videography, but I want to try and not get ink everywhere. The original Paragons had sections that matched, and the Milords still do. The modern Paragons do not. I had a black one too. Same thing. They have a vermeil section, so gold over silver. And that's a shame, because it would look so beautiful if it had that big section and the same material. The one thing I will say about the metal section, though, is that it gives a very good balance. And that is very nice. That it's very comfortable to write with, because it has a bit of forward weight. Someone asks if Aziza has seen the new Pelican Mach-E Dragonfly. I know the answer to that question. Have you seen the new Pelican Mach-E Dragonfly?
Yeah, I've already answered.
Oh, she has already answered. Yeah, I need
Pay
it.
attention.
Oh, sorry,
Keep
sorry. I need it, but it's so expensive. Yes, I know. They are those Mach-E pens are beautiful, but they definitely are costly pieces. Speaking of expensive pens, it may be interesting for some people to know that I have shot and scheduled my review of the classic pens LB6. This is not it. I sent the LB6 back because that was a loaner, but that was an interesting pen to try out and use. So that review should be coming, I think, October. I want to say October 30th, but somewhere in the late October atmosphere. The new white Pelican has me drooling. Yeah, that's an interesting pen. I look forward to seeing that in real life. I'm not sure if I am an enormous fan of white pens, but
Are you a fan of pens?
I'm a fan of pens. Yes. Ah, panic. So there is. I'm not a giant fan of the white pens, but that's interesting for sure. This is not writing. It's just me scribbling. I will be going to Scriptus, so I will see you there. Yes, it's fire hosing ink, Ralph. That's kind of what this thing does. It's pretty massive line, and a true architect in a way. So that's very nice. Why does Pelican keep making amazing pens? That's a good question. What I would really like to see them do is make some sort of special edition, say the Renaissance Brown or even the Tortoise in the M1000 size, because that would be spectacular. It would be expensive, but it would also be very interesting. Right? It's always the M800s or the smaller versions. Pim, from one of your previous live videos, what exactly is an eyedropper burping? Just popped in my mind. Yeah, that's a very good question. An eyedropper burping. I don't have an eyedropper at hand, but I'm just going to pretend like you know what? I'm just going to pretend that this is an eyedropper, because you can barely see. Oh, here we have an eyedropper. You know what an eyedropper pen is, of course. Very simple. You fill the barrel with ink with an eyedropper. That's easy. Now, what happens is that there is always an air bubble, right? That's just the way it is. So as you write, let me just turn this over. You are happily writing. And what can happen is that all of a sudden you get sort of a blob of ink. That was not a very good. I can't really simulate it because you know it doesn't work that way. What happens is, as you write, your pen gets emptier, right? Because you're using up ink. That ink is replaced by air. And if you write for a longer time with an eyedropper filled pen that is starting to get empty, so the ink level is dropping, there's more air. And what happens to air when it heats up? It expands. Notice the visual aids I'm using here. And when air expands, there's only one way it can go, right? This is the only exit in your pen for air. So what happens is the ink actually gets pushed towards the feed and gets pushed out, and then you can actually get a blob of ink. And sometimes it's actually quite spectacular. I've had large Indian pens with big ink capacity that were eyedroppered, and if you use those and the ink burbs, you can pretty much end up with a puddle about that size, because it just falls out. That was the auditory effect, and that's ink burping. It's not a very charming term, but it's kind of. I mean, you could also call it ink vomiting, but that's even more nauseating. So, ink burping is not that bad. There is a simple solution, which is always keep your eyedropper pen as full as you can make it. Because if you do that, then even if the air expands a bit, you know, there's more ink in the pen. It doesn't really matter. It's only when you really have a lot of air in there that it really starts to become a problem. So I hope that answers the question. All right. What else do we have?
Somebody asked what the ink was.
The ink in this?
I think. Yes, what order ink it is? Iroshizuku Fuyugaki. Well, that's really legible.
That is really legible. Fuyugaki. It's Iroshizuku ink. We're not mean to each other. We're always like this. Don't worry.
Oh, that was actually decent.
So, any recommendations for a cheapish pen that can take a number 8 Jovo nib? A number 8 nib? That's actually tough. I from the top of my head, I don't really have an immediate answer. I mean, there are number 8 nibs, of course, number 8 pens. I would almost be inclined to say look at one of those really big Indian pens. There are some eyedroppers, but an inexpensive one with a number 8 nib, I'm actually not sure. Because those nibs are big. I mean, that's sizable. Here you have, this looks ridiculous because it's a giant pen, but that's actually a number 6 nib. And that would be number 8. So it's number 8 is no joke. And to find a pen with that, I actually don't know. We're going to look this up because I actually do want to know.
Do you want me to look it up?
If you can, sure. Opinion on Waltman pens. A Noodles Nippon set. I actually think that's a number 6, I want to say.
Yes.
Opinion on Waltman pens. Yes, I have had a Waltman, and I was very, very pleased. I have reviewed one that was called, if you want to check out the review, that's called the Waltman Tango, as in the dance. And that was a very pleasant nib. Not only is it fun pens, because they are all silver, which is nice. Same thing as with a yard lead, for example. But the nib, it had a broad nib, and that was a stellar nib. Super smooth, very, very pleasant. In the end, I ended up selling it because I didn't use it that much. The one thing I would say about Waltman is they're slightly skinny pens. They're not very girthy, at least the ones, pretty much every Waltman I've seen is pretty slim. But the nibs, I tried out a bunch in the shop. They were all superb. So if you're looking to buy one, I would say go for it because they are definitely nice and have the SBREBROWN seal of approval. I've got the feeling I have to have something like that made and just put it on every review. Anyway, so Waltman, yeah, for sure. Advice? Yes.
The only thing I can see from a quick search is Scriptorium pens can make a pen.
Oh, right.
Number 8 nib, but that's not really budget.
Right, Scriptorium pens. She does really nice work. So that is, I'm trying to write legibly, Scriptorium pens. You can check her as she has a website. She's also on Instagram. It's not really a budget option, but she does do very nice pen turning work. Okay, here's a question about pen show attendance. What to do? How do you go to a pen show for the first time? Well, depending on what pen show you attend, be prepared that the balance between modern pens and vintage pens varies a bit. Most pen shows I've gone to are mostly vintage and a bit of modern. There are some exceptions. The DC pen show may be about 50-50 or maybe 60-40 in favor of vintage. But a lot of European shows, for example the Cologne pen show or even the Tilburg show, I would say is probably 90% vintage and 10% modern. So be prepared for that. If you're a collector of modern pens, really research the show you're going to, because otherwise you may be disappointed. Another thing is that a lot of pen shows are, yeah, I think that's safe to say, a lot of pen shows are kind of about the traders themselves. So they kind of trade amongst themselves. And there are a lot of really nice vendors. Some vendors are a bit more interested in the other vendors more so than attendees of the show. That's just my experience. That depends a little bit on the pen show that you visit. Some are a bit more, I would almost say, friendly, or maybe I should say open to new people rather than other pen shows are. One thing that's important is bear in mind that a lot of people who attend pen shows as vendors are private people like you and me, and not necessarily companies. And that may mean that you will not be able to pay through credit card or PayPal, that they only take cash. So if anything, I would say bring cash, because many US pen shows are in hotels. Often those hotels have an ATM, but not always.
Bring snacks and water.
Yes, that's so bring some cash. The other advantage of bringing cash is that you have a set budget, because that's how much you spend. Because trust me, it's very dangerous to spend a lot at a pen show. Bringing snacks and water is a great idea, because you are walking around, you're standing around a lot, It's just people sitting behind tables selling pens. They're sitting, but you're standing and walking. So bring something so that you can sustain yourself, because it can be quite tiring, especially if it's a multi-day show and you are actually attending multiple days. What also doesn't hurt, and that was a tip from Richard Binder on his website. I think he has an article on pen shows, but that's actually a pretty good tip. Bring Ziploc bags, because a lot of pens you buy there will not come with boxes or anything. So then you have something to store your pens in, which is especially nice if you're flying, that they won't bang into each other. Or of course bring an empty pen pouch, which you can entirely fill up at the pen show. That's a very good point. Those that do take credit cards don't necessarily have reliable service, because they all rely on a single Wi-Fi signal, often in a hotel, and sometimes there isn't even Wi-Fi. Some vendors will allow you to use PayPal. Some vendors require a little bit of prodding to allow you to do so, because bear in mind that for them, the money they make often is spending money for the show, so they would rather take cash than have some PayPal that no other vendors will take. So I would try that. So that's I would say a couple of things, and it's wonderful to go to pen shows. One of the great things about a pen show is that you really get to meet like-minded people, so you don't have to explain why you like pens or why you like broad nibs, or because they will understand your preferences. They'll understand that you're actually interested, and that's always a lot of fun. So you know, I think that's kind of my rundown on pen shows. The most important thing is enjoy it. Just have fun. You have a great opportunity to learn, to chat with other people, people who have been in the hobby for a lot longer than you have been. That's always the case, because some of the vendors have been in this for decades and decades. And a lot of them are very willing to share information, but don't be shy to ask. If you're interested, someone who's very good at that is Cliff Harrington, who sells vintage pens. I mean, you ask him one question and you get a half-hour lecture. And I don't mean that in any negative way, but he's very eager to share his information, share his passion about the pens that he's selling, and he loves to tell you, to teach and explain to you what he has learned in years of collecting. So that's always a lot of fun and a great opportunity to learn. So especially if you're interested in vintage, ask them what happened to Wal Eversharp, why in his case, why he likes the Doric so much, etc., and you will get a very interesting story. So that's always great, I think. Yeah, so that's I think that's one of the fun things at a pen show. You just get to have fun, and a lot of the pen show stuff. Sorry, I had to take a sip there. A lot of the pen show stuff actually happens in the bar afterwards. There's still a lot of trading there, and people, you just get to hang out and just have fun and use your pens, use other people's pens, and that's also great because you get to try out a lot of stuff, which kind of shows you what you may like, other stuff you may want to check out, and things that you might not otherwise have considered as interesting pens to check. Sarge, yes. Well, Sarge, the thing with Sarge, if you don't know Sarge, he's not a professional pen seller, although he might as well be. That man, Sarge Minhas, he has an encyclopedic knowledge on pens, and he attends a lot of pen shows. He will be in Tilburg, I think. He goes to the DC show. He goes to a lot of the US shows. He's at pretty much all the UK shows because he lives in the UK. And even though he's not a professional retailer, that man has an enormous lineup. He brings so much to the table, quite literally. Limited editions, but also more affordable pens. And he knows so much. I often have questions for him, and he always has the answer. So we call him the one-man pen show, not only because he brings so many pens, but he knows so much. So if you have Sarge present at a pen show, then we always jokingly say there are two pen shows. There is the pen show, and there is Sarge, who his own tables, because usually it's multiple tables. You can basically spend the entire day at his tables and not be bored. You don't have to do anything else, which I think is great. Do you know if Sarge takes PayPal, or will I be completely safe? Sarge strongly prefers cash for the same reason I just gave. It's his spending money. I don't want to speak on his behalf, but from experience, I can tell you that if you really push him, then he is sometimes willing to take PayPal, but that's not guaranteed, and it's very, very dangerous, because once the PayPal doors open, all kinds of stuff can happen. But preferably cash, and I think that goes for every vendor, because they don't want to have cash, unless you are talking about a professional vendor like, say, La Couronne de Compte in the Netherlands, or Anderson Pens in the US. I think La Couronne de Compte, I'm not even sure. I don't think they can take credit card payment at the show, but their shop is around the corner, so it doesn't really matter. But Anderson Pens, I think they do, and some of the other big players, like I think Edison Pen, can take a credit card, because they are actual companies and they actually have that infrastructure. Whereas if you were to go to a pen show to sell your pens, you probably can't take credit card payments either. So that's it. Yeah. Well, yes, Pim, it will be very dangerous to go to Sarge's table. It will also be fun, because whatever you're looking for, there's a pretty good chance he has it, and if he doesn't have it, he can probably get it at some point, because the nice thing about Sarge is that he also, because he attends so many shows, he actually has a lot of turnover of pens, and he can look out for things for you if you ask him politely. You're going to London this weekend, London show? Because I don't know, is that now? In any case, the London show I have never attended, but as I understand it, it's a very nice show. So, all right, Tara, see you later. Bye. Oh, it's just Lord Windermere barging in. And of course, the advantage of a pen show, especially if you have to travel out for it, is that you also get to do some city exploring if you happen to be able to add a couple of days. So I've had wonderful trips to Cologne for the show. Check out the Cologne, the city of Cologne is beautiful. Madrid was a lot of fun. That's actually one of the few multi-day European shows, and highly, highly recommended. Really well organized, very friendly people. Nice thing about that is that you're also in Madrid, right? So you can actually do some exploring and see some of the tourist sites there, which I think is one of the great fun things of a pen show. How am I enjoying the LB6? Well, it was only on loan. I found it I thought it was a beautiful pen. It was very wide, though. I found the section to be very wide, and for me that was not the most comfortable pen I've ever used. Absolutely stunning pen, though. There's no doubt there. I mean, it was beautifully made and very, very nice in that regard. As to Tilburg, yeah, of course, that's a pen show I know well. I've been visiting that since 2011. That is a lot of vintage. So if you are in the market for an interesting vintage pen, for example, because you want to try vintage flex, you'll find it there. No problem. It depends a little bit on what body you're interested in, what brand, and how expensive it will be, because, I mean, those usually are not $10, $15 pens, but you can definitely find some good pens there, and especially if you are willing to do some restoration yourself, then you can definitely have really good deals there. Alright, okay, well, I've been going for a while. Were there any other questions? Any desperate questions that you need me to answer right now? I'll give you all a minute or so to type if that's the case, because I will gladly, I mean, I'm here now, I'll gladly answer something, but otherwise we're probably going to round up, simply because I don't really have that much to talk about, because I'm not that interesting a person. Someone nods heartily here in agreement. No, I know. Pilot Parallel, Classic Pens LB5, Visconti Speakeasy, Visconti Opera Elements. I'm just going through pens here. Visconti Opera Master Tobacco. Have you ever wondered? This is a regular Visconti Opera size, and this is the master size. So should you wonder if it's a bigger pen, yes, it's really a bigger pen. The orange, you meant this? Because that is the orange. That's the 2.4 millimeter Pilot Parallel. This is the well, has several names, but tobacco. Oh, the orange. This orange. Yes, that's thank you. That's Fuyugaki. Thanks, Ralph. That's the Iroshizuku ink. Fuyugaki. Nice ink. The Opera Master. Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. That's a nice pen. Really, it's a big pen. It's heavy. It's solid. Nice nib. Now that it is Mike Masuyama tuned, broad 18 karat gold. Very pleasant nib, and very pleasant pen. The ultimate fine, question mark. I have been very pleased, but that's a little tough because they're not available anymore, but I have been very pleased with the fine on my Omas Paragon. Horrid writing, but that's try to do it a bit large because of the video. Very nice fine. It's very smooth. It's pretty juicy. Definitely very nice. Have I been into fine nibs? Not really. I'm more into broad, but I do appreciate a good fine because it's very practical. And that's why I do like to have some fine. One fine that is a lot of fun is this stipula, because that's fine titanium. So the nice thing about this, that's Waterman purple, is that you have this, but because it's titanium, pushed a bit too hard there, but then you also have that because it's titanium. So you have this, but you also have that, and I think that is that's a lot of fun. Be careful when you do that to titanium. This is a particularly stiff one, so you can push it pretty hard. Some would spring at that point, so be careful. Yeah, permanent inks. Are Mont Blanc permanent ink safe? It depends a little bit on your definition of safe. Given that it is a Mont Blanc ink, I would expect them to perform well. I have tried a few. I haven't really had issues, but it is a permanent ink. So that means you need to clean your pen very well. I would say the same thing as with an iron gall ink. Not all permanent inks are iron gall inks, but if you use permanent inks, whether it's De Atramentis Document or whether it's Mont Blanc, exercise really good pen hygiene, because it's a permanent ink. So if that gets stuck in your feed, it doesn't mean you can never get it out, but I mean that is a permanent ink, so be a bit careful with that. I would say I've not really had any issues with Mont Blanc permanent ink. To be honest, I don't really find myself using a whole lot of permanent inks. Yeah. Next pen purchase after the TWSBI 580, next level. Well, there's always a lot of different options, but...
Claudia asked what ink is in your...
Oh,
sorry, in your Opera Master, in this one.
This is the Opera Master?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Hello, Claudia. This is... Ooh, what is that? That was supposed to be a G. Ignore that. It's one of the Ackermann Dutch Masters. Gele Oker van Frans. Next pen after TWSBI, I don't know, a lot of options. Not spectacular, but will write well, would be a Parker or a Waterman. Is that necessarily level up? I don't know. One pen that I recommend a lot of people because it ticks a lot of boxes is the Lamy 2000. That's a very futuristic design that may not be to your liking, but if you like a TWSBI, you may also like that because it's a bit modern. That ticks a lot of boxes because it's a piston filler, it's a gold nib, it's kind of interesting, it's not too big, not too small, so I think a lot of people kind of like that, so you can always have a look at that. Have I seen the new Visconti Manhattan and Homo sapiens Jade? Yes, I have. Very fascinating. I don't really understand Visconti's logic because then suddenly all kinds of things are introduced, but that's kind of fun, I suppose. I have seen them, but I haven't tried them, so I can't really say anything about the performance yet. Monteverde Intima, yeah, that's I know those are nail type nibs, but they are definitely interesting pens. Nice materials. Have I tried or seen the new Lamy Aeon? I have seen pictures of it, but I haven't actually seen it. I haven't held one, but trust me, I will do whatever I can to get one for review because I know people will want to see that. Affordable pens are always interesting. All right, well, I think that I'm going to call it a day. Thank you all very, very much for joining me. It's for people like you that I do these kinds of things, so I'm always happy I'm not sitting here by myself without viewers talking to myself. That would be weird. So I appreciate that. The video will be on YouTube, as these things are. I have 24 seconds remaining. Instagram lets me know. So I wish you a very, very pleasant day / evening, whatever time zone it is. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. A lot of new reviews coming up, so keep an eye on my channel. And I hope this was useful. And I'll gladly see you later. Bye!